Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is relatively early on a Sunday, and we are going to be going on a little adventure today. I am going to be seeking out the nearest free little library that I can find, and we're going to see what's there, take some books, leave some books, and if there's something I can read for this vlog in that little free library, I'm going to be doing so. So, credits are about to roll, and we'll discuss it all shortly. Good morning, good morning. I have my tea. It's probably 10 a.m. By the time I'm up and dressed and filming this, it's taken a little longer than I hoped for, but nevertheless, I'm going to have some tea now. Bear with. Oh, that's really good. So, why are we doing this? Why am I doing anything on a Sunday, you ask? Well, last night I was just idly looking up the Free Little Library app because I didn't think it was a thing here. It's not something you see in around and about, so I assumed it's something that's quite American. However, I just was idly having a look, and on the app, one came up fairly near me. And I say fairly. It's not next door. It's a little way out, but it's probably 15-20 minutes. That normally wouldn't have motivated me to get up on a Sunday and get ready and put on makeup and go out. However, the little free library is next to B&Q, which for Americans it's a hardware store, I guess. It's like a hardware store on acid. It's everything you could possibly need to do your house up. You can buy whole kitchens there. You can buy paint. You can get garden stuff, anything you need. So I'm not advertising them, shockingly, but they owe me a refund, and all I need to do to get that refund is to actually go in and fill in some paperwork. And I've been putting it off because it's 20 minutes out of my way, and who has the time and energy, right? So I thought if I go to this free little library that's next to the B&Q, I can go get my money back, and it's a win-win situation for everyone. So that's the plan. There's also a little Costa coffee place nearby, so we may do that. And as well as that, they'll have like Christmas stuff at B&Q. And if I do get my refund, I may be purchasing a little bit and maybe showing you. We will see. If I don't get my refund, I will not be purchasing. I will be very upset. However, really this is about finding the free little library. I think it's great that someone has one here, that they've taken the time and energy to make one. I really hope it's being used and isn't just ignored. We will see. I'm genuinely quite interested and quite excited, and I really hope that you're enjoying watching it and will enjoy experiencing it along with me. So next time you see me, I'll either be outside someone's little free library outside their house, and if that's not too creepy, we'll talk. If it is, you'll see me next in the B&Q car park. Hey, here I am filming quite awkwardly in the B&Q car park. I'm not really used to filming in public, talking in public. A little bit weird, but here we are. I have made it. It was a whole kerfuffle. I forgot the paperwork that I needed, had to go back and get it, had to come back. Oh, whole nightmare. However, the important thing for you is that I found the little free library, which was not far away from the B&Q in quite a posh new build area, but it looked really lovely. It felt like someone was going to kick me out for daring to trespass on such lovely, lovely streets. However, I found it and it had a little selection of books. I was actually quite surprised. It was very full. I almost I struggled to kind of fit all my books in, but I did. So I feel really good that I got rid of the books that I needed to get rid of, and I took one in return, which is here. Ta-da! Is The Concert Hall Killer. It's a cozy crime novel about a TV series that is being filmed in the Lake District, and the murder happens and some local bingo hall ladies get involved. It's quite basic. It's not necessarily something I would pay for, but for a free little read, I'm willing to give it a go. There were some other good things, but nothing that jumps to mind for me. Nothing that made me want to pick it up. The other book there, though, that I've been considering reading now is The Secret History, which I own, so I'm definitely not going to have taken it from the free little library. But I've been meaning to read The Secret History for ages, and I was talking about it recently with some friends who said, sorry, someone is looking at me to see. Oh no, someone's parking next to me. It's going to be really awkward. I'm just going to look busy for a short while. Oh my god, now the person next to me on the other side is getting in their car. It's like I shouldn't be filming here. It's not even that I'm doing anything wrong, it's just social embarrassment. It is really hectic here because it's just hit lunchtime, I think. So people are kind of waking up to do their shopping or going for lunch and whatnot. Okay. So the other book I was considering was The Secret History, which is a dark academia, very famous, almost certainly you've heard of it. I have it, and it's one of the books that would be ideal for my Read What You Own series that I'm doing, challenge that I'm doing. Would be absolutely ideal, but it's been intimidating me for so long. And I was talking about it with my friends who were very much like, don't let it intimidate you. It might be a little bit outdated now, but it's worth reading. And I've been meaning to do it, and it feels like this is a sign to pick it up. So, should I read 2 books for this video? That's the question. But one of them would be useful to get done. And we are in dark academia season. November is a good dark academia time. Yeah, I'll do it. I will read this and The Secret History, and both will have been read because I visited the free little library, which I think is really great. As for the other errands I had to run, B&Q did not give me my refund. I was not happy about it because they said on the phone it would be fine, and then when I got here they said, oh no, you're not allowed to have this money back. Why did they say it was fine on the phone? So they did refund the previous owner of the property, even though he set it up so that that wouldn't be the case, but they have refunded him. So now I've just got to trust that the previous owner will give me my money back. And we do have like a really good relationship, so hopefully he'll be fine about it. But I'm quite annoyed that I potentially have lost nearly 80 quid because of a B&Q. So this is not a recommendation. This is not an advert. B&Q messed me around. Okay, I'm going to drive home and we're going to start reading some books and I'll talk about them, tell you how I feel. Okay, sound good? Great. Hello, I am back. You'll have to forgive the terrible lighting because the sun is blaring so hard through the window. It's just a wall of light in the corner of the screen, so please forgive that. However, it's been about a week. In fact, it's been exactly a week since I last spoke to you, and I have finished the books I got from the free library, which is to say, I DNF'd one. So painful to have to do this, because this one was the one I actually took from the little free library. Free little library? I never remember which way round it goes. This was the one I took, and so I really wanted to finish this one. Especially as it's got like a tracking thing inside that you can put the details on where you got it and where you pass it on to. So I wanted to read it, leave a comment and send it on. However, I had to DNF, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I'm not calling this a bad book. I'm really not. What this doesn't advertise at any point on the front or the back is that this is in fact the third book in a series. I would not have picked it up if I'd known it was the third book in a series, because I don't know anything about these characters. And because this is a very cosy mystery book, it kind of expects you to know who these people are. And I don't have any connection to them. I don't care about them. And it doesn't do the job of setting them up, because you're supposed to know who they are already. So very quickly I was just dealing with characters who weren't properly introduced and who I didn't care about. It's also in the genre of the cosy mystery, the Richard Osman school of mysteries and old people solving crimes. And it's a very much a knockoff of Richard Osman in a good way, in a way that lots of people are writing these sorts of stories. I don't have a problem with that. However, I'm not a big fan of the Thursday Murder Club series. It doesn't appeal to me on a fundamental level. Sorry, Meg with the books. It's just a mystery series I don't enjoy. Which means that the knockoffs of it I also don't enjoy. And I love a cosy mystery. I really do. I'm not snobbish about them. I'm more than happy to read an Agatha Raisin, etc., etc. But yeah, without it being invested in the characters, I can't. It's even less likely I'm going to enjoy a genre of mystery I don't particularly like already. So yeah, this was a DNF. However, I'm not saying this is a bad book. If you like that sort of mystery, this series is probably going to be really fun for you. It is about, I should have probably said this to begin with, it is about a bingo hall club. Bingo hall club? Bingo group? Bunch of ladies who go to bingo together. You know the type. It's about them solving a mystery when a TV series starts filming in town and bodies start piling up. So yeah, I think if you're into that, you'll like it. It's got a fairly diverse cast. It should be fun. It's just not for me. And I will pass this on to hopefully another an owner more suited to it. But even though this was the only book I picked up, I did end up reading another book thanks to the Free Little Library. And that is The Secret History. The big one. I have had this book for about 3 years and I've been too intimidated to read it. And I've only got more intimidated as time has gone on. My friends all love it. Everyone I know loves it. Everyone and their mother has read it. But I haven't, and I was too nervous to pick it up. But it was in the Free Little Library, and so I didn't take it because I already own a copy, but I thought, well, it's the universe telling me to read it. And also, when I was last away with my friends, we talked about The Secret History, and they were all shocked that I hadn't read it and told me to, so it really felt like the universe coming together and wanting me to read this book after all this time. I am just putting this down because it is quite heavy. I think what put me off was I'm not a huge fan of dark academia. I want to like it, I really do, but every time I read it, I'm slightly annoyed by it. I think I have a lot of my own issues around education, and getting to university was a huge struggle for me, even though it was something I desperately wanted. And there was nothing I wanted more than to be able to go to one of the great institutions like Oxford and Cambridge and study there, even though in hindsight even if I'd been the greatest student in the world, even if I'd had a normal education, I'd have never fitted in at a place like that. I wasn't set up to function in that kind of world. And I think there's so much idealism of academia in these kind of books that it puts me off a little bit, because it feels like quite a naive take on it, or it's very keen to show you the dark side of that world, when I already feel that I understand what that dark side is. I mean, not murders and, you know, abuse and all those things, but the classism that's inherent in those situations is something that I understand as a working class British person who's done fairly well in my life. I've experienced it. I don't need to have a 17-year-old experience it for me in a book, you know? So there is that, but I still try with dark academia. I read the recent anthology, is it In These Hallowed Halls? I read that and I mostly liked it. There were some hits and some misses. I've read Babel, which I didn't like, partly because of my dark academia issues and partly because I found it hammered the point home a little too hard. What else? I read The Maidens, which I have terrible associations with because I was listening to that audiobook during an absolute crisis in my own life. So I listened to that book while crying for 11 hours. So it wasn't the best association of it, even if it had been the greatest book in the world, which it was not. And all of these books, they all carry a very clear mark of having been inspired by The Secret History. So I wanted to read it because I wanted to understand where it came from, but as someone who wasn't a wild fan of any of those books, I was a little bit wary. My friends also said, oh, it's a bit of its time, you might not find it as powerful as we did when we read it when we were much younger. And also there's that slight fear that it's going to be talking about classics and Greek and Latin and literature in a way that makes me feel incredibly unknowledgeable and unintellectual, which I'm not unknowledgeable, I'm not unintellectual, but these books really highlight the genius of their characters by making all these references that you don't get, and you're meant to feel that the character gets them, and also you're meant to feel that the author gets it as well, I think. So yeah, all of that tied up in one book was always going to be a struggle. However, I quite like this. I'm not calling it the best book in the world. It's not. It's a solid 4-star read. However, it's not what I expected, and that for me was the biggest win. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely see this as the author dealing with the struggles of their education via the lens of The Great Gatsby. That's what this book is. If you told me that she came up with this idea while drunk and rereading The Great Gatsby, I would believe you 1000%. However, I like the fact that it didn't glamorise academia. It didn't fetishise it in the way that the books that it inspires do. If anything, the world of the university was grubby and miserable and not somewhere you would ever really aspire to be, at least certainly not as an adult who is living their own life and past their education years. So I really enjoyed the fact that it didn't make this university seem magical in any way. It didn't make it seem like Hogwarts. It was just a university that was full of rich people, and it didn't try and glamorise that in any way. Partly helped by the fact it was a fictional university. It wasn't a real one that has that real world glamour to it. Again, I'm putting this down because it's really heavy. The education as well was also more realistic. The characters aren't geniuses. They are average students who are varying degrees of passionate, but who all are trained to think of themselves as something special, far more special than they actually are. And that arrogance runs through the book, even in the main character who doesn't come from that background but still has a very arrogant streak to him. I liked that because it didn't mean that I, as an older adult reader, felt intimidated by a bunch of teenagers, you know?
I felt that they were smart, sure, they certainly understood languages in a way that I do not, and they clearly had a deep knowledge of their subject. However, I think any of us would, given intensive years of tutoring by one person for weeks at a time, I think we all would have that kind of knowledge. So I really liked that they had a very normal attitude to academia itself. They studied in a half-hearted way at times, sometimes with more passion. I really liked that. And I enjoyed that the book was more about the arrogance of the entitled at university than about the university or the subjects themselves. The mystery, or it's not a mystery, it's a thriller of sorts. I think that's the bit that, in hindsight, feels a bit basic, just because this has inspired so many books, so many very similar stories, even stories that aren't dark academia. They're inspired by this plot line. So that felt quite old in places, or not old, but I've seen it before, so I was less excited by it. But what it did do is it made quite a simple series of events stretch out in a way that really increased the tension, made you feel that you were carrying this guilt alongside them, made you feel like you were stressed and concerned along with them and trapped in this circumstance with them, and I liked that. So it's a dark academia thriller in which a relatively poor student from LA transfers to a super prestigious university in America and the East Coast, and he manages to get into a Greek course which is run by a very interesting, unique, quirky teacher who basically turns his students into his own little crew and doesn't really let them study outside of his lessons. They only have him as a tutor. They are very cut off from the rest of the university. During the events of the book, something terrible happens, and one particular member of the group starts to cause trouble, leading to a murder. And it's really about the various stresses, covering up, guilt, fear that's involved in that throughout the rest of the book. The thing that probably surprised me most of all was how little relevance the tutor has to the book. I thought it would be this deeply charismatic, controlling tutor who shapes all of their lives, and the book below basically says that, and all of these copycat books, not copycat, but inspired books, they often follow that theme. And yet in this, the tutor is so incidental. I think I was looking at the Storygraph questions for discussion. They often have a section where people submit questions for like book clubs and things. And I think one of them is literally, how do you think Julian got mixed up with these kids? He's so incidental. And it comes together at the end pretty well, I will grant you, and his role in it comes round pretty well, but he's just not in it as much as I thought and didn't influence them as much as I thought. And in some ways I enjoyed that because it was a twist on what I was expecting, but it does feel like this really strange choice. So yeah, I think I may end up doing a separate video about this. I don't know, but overall, I really liked The Secret History. I'm really glad I read it. I didn't feel that it challenged me as much as I expected. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. I'm glad I read it. That's all I can really say. And I'm very glad that this whole experience led me to reading this, which I would probably not have done for quite a long time. So I'm really glad. As for the other book, again, just the bad luck that it didn't tell me it was a sequel, or I wouldn't have picked it up in the first place. We would have read something else. But there we go. This has been just such a fun experience for me. I absolutely loved it. I'm so glad I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, did something different. I'm really sorry you had to hear about B&Q as much as you did, but it was a whole part of the experience. Enjoy. I think I'll definitely go back to a free little library given the opportunity. that one's quite a way out of my way, so if I do get the chance, I will pop there. But if not, I'll find another and maybe we'll do this again. We'll see. Thank you so much for watching. It means such the world to me. You have no idea. If you are watching this, all I want you to know is how much I appreciate it. If you do like my content, if you do find me fun or interesting or just easy to zone out to while you play on your phone, whatever that is, if you like it in any way, please either let me know in the comments, which would mean the world, or subscribe so you can see even more of my content going forward. Anything you can do to help me with the algorithm will be wonderful. If not, have a cracking day. We'll talk soon, and I will be almost certainly reading more books.